I started cycling about 15 years ago, and in that time, I have learned a lot. But if I were a beginner starting all over again, this is everything that I'd want to know. First up, basic cleaning. It is a bit of an arduous task, but it's a fantastic habit to get into. If you can get used to regularly cleaning your bike, degreasing your chain and cassette, and then re-lubing, you will save a lot of money on components and servicing. It's a bit arduous, like I say, but it's a really good habit to get into, and hopefully one I'll eventually get into myself. Next up is saddle height. Now, getting your saddle height right is critical for comfort on the bike, but the various methods of measuring saddle height I feel like can be quite vague. I think doing it by feel is a good way to get a starting point, but if you are experiencing pain in your hands, feet or saddle, then it could be worth checking your saddle height is correct, because a simple tweak there could make all the difference. I remember when I first started cycling, I had my saddle height too high and I was getting loads of pain in my hands because my weight was too far forwards on the bike. So I dropped it down by about 5 mil, and that made all the difference, and it made those longer rides much more comfortable, which was great. So if you need help getting your saddle height set, then either visit a local bike shop or see a bike fitter, and it could make a world of difference to your riding. Unlike bikes of 10, 15 years ago now, it's necessary to ensure battery levels are topped up. There's nothing more annoying than getting ready to go for a ride and then seeing that your Di2 battery is only going to last for half of your ride. So try and get into the habit of checking your battery levels the night before. It'll make getting out the door much easier. When I first started cycling, I did a lot of solo riding because I was keen to explore my local area and kind of continually push the boundaries of where I knew and learn more about the place where I lived. But when I started to ride with my friends, that is when I noticed my performance shoot up. I believe that riding with people that are faster than you over and over and over and over again is one of the best ways to get faster on the bike. It forces you to dig deeper than you ever might do while riding by yourself, and it teaches you a lot about energy conservation and good road manners. Getting a coach is a good next step, but if you're wanting to make fast progress early on, then simply ride with people that are much quicker than you. Spending money on bikes is part of the game, but when I started, I didn't really want to. However, I do wish I knew how good it is to swap tyres out to something better. Often, the stock tyres that come on entry-level bikes don't tend to be great, but they're also one of the easiest upgrades to make. I certainly wish I knew how good it would be to change my tyres, and if I was starting again today, I would also put in a pair of TPU inner tubes, just to really maximise the change. The extra grip, comfort, and ability to go lower on the pressures just makes riding so much better. When it comes to spending money on bike gear, I went in with the approach of spending the minimum possible. Now, for many, simply spending as much as you absolutely have to is the perfect amount to spend. However, I quickly found myself growing out of the gear that I was buying. Either this was through use and it wore out, or it was because actually I'd bought a bit too cheap and it was no longer sufficient for the riding that I was doing. In the end, this turned into a pretty costly way of buying gear. There is truth in the saying, buy cheap, pay twice. So now, my advice to myself would be, buy the best of what you can sensibly afford. And that doesn't mean you have to go brand new. Go second hand if it makes sense. There are lots of good second-hand retailers now, even at the high end. A second-hand bike with 105 is such a great thing to get because it balances performance with affordable servicing really nicely. When you move to Ultegra or Dura-Ace, the chains, cassettes and other wearable parts do get very expensive. So, as with cars, only buy what you can afford to run. Something I regret not spending money on sooner was a decent pair of shorts. I am ashamed to admit how long it took me to actually buy a decent pair of shorts, and after I did not look back. Yes, they were undoubtedly a lot of money, but as soon as I started to use them and feel how good they were, I knew they were completely worth it. And for the record, they weren't some crazy top-end shorts, they were just some entry-level shorts from Rafa, but compared to the knockoffs that I've been using before, they were a huge step up. When I'm buying a helmet, I don't really think about how safe it is, because ultimately all helmets meet a minimum safety requirement. What I do think about though is how light and how ventilated it is, because those are qualities that you will get to benefit from every single time you use that helmet. Personally, I just want to forget that it's even there. So, along with a good pair of shorts, consider getting a good helmet too. Head to your local bike shop, try a bunch on, see what feels good, see what looks good, and go for that. And do remember, most good helmets come with a crash replacement policy, so if you do have a tumble, then you'll be able to replace it for a fraction of the cost. I actually have fairly small hands, and for a long time I had no clue that I could adjust the brake levers on my bike. All brake levers these days can be adjusted to bring them closer to the handlebars, making them easier to grab. So if this is something you struggle with, then grab an Allen key and wind them in. Last up is food. When I first started cycling, I bonked on the bike so many times, and it was completely preventable. So make sure you stay properly fueled. I'm not going to claim that this is proper nutrition, but make sure you've got something going into your stomach, because it makes a world of difference. And yeah, even to this day, I sometimes get this wrong. So that's everything that I wish I knew when I started cycling. If there's any experienced cyclists watching, then drop your top tips down below, and hopefully we can turn the comment section into a haven of cycling knowledge. Cheers.